Great. So welcome everybody. I've already done our intro, but I'll do it again. Welcome to the November ASCE meeting. This is our fourth and final one, and we are almost to the end of the semester. So I am feeling great. Finally caught up with a lot of my lectures that I was behind on, and midterm season for the most part has had its third wave pass. So we're just getting ready for finals now. I've got a couple talking points to go through. One of them is very exciting. Some of them not so much. Some of you've seen before. But after that, we've got a great presentation planned for you guys. So here we go. One upcoming opportunity. We are not hosting this event. So if you have any questions, reach out to the people who are. It's the AWWA. More details in the email to ask questions about that, but I'll run through the details here that I have. It's the Diversity in Water series. This is featuring one of the Columbus Department of Public Utilities project managers, and she's going to talk about her experiences with the city and working as an engineer with the city of Columbus. So that is something you need to register for. It was in the email that I sent yesterday, so check that out. You can find all of our events on u.osu.edu/ASCE/calendar. There's no more events planned for this semester, so it's going to be a little quiet in there until the spring, but you can still add that so you won't miss them come next semester. Our first general body meeting next semester, can't possibly miss that one. So hop on there. I always have to push this, you guys. I know you're tired of hearing me talk about it, but national registration is a big, national registration is a big component of ASCE. The presentation didn't even want me to talk about this. Big component of ASCE. It's a global organization. They are the representative body for your future profession. I'm just reading from the slides here, but all of it's true. That's why I wrote it. It's free for students, guys. It took me, I think, 6 minutes to fill out the application. They ask you to renew it every year, or maybe it's 2 years. It's not a lot of commitment to be an ASCE national member, and it's free. So that's there's no monetary cost involved, and they do give you free things in return. They provide 10 PDHs, which are professional development hours. That's like continuing education after college is over. Some places ask you to do that. They have a mentoring program that's fantastic. I know Ohio State has a great CEGE mentoring program that I'm in. I was also going to become a peer mentor before that program ended. So mentoring is really valuable. I've had some awesome experiences with that here in college. So to have a mentor once I graduate, that would be super cool. So that's another thing they offer. And they also have volunteering opportunities. Those are super important. Right now, not so much, just because they're still important, but they're not so much offering them because of COVID. But those will be back. I know there was a Habitat for Humanity one they were hosting that was super fun. That got canceled, but they'll have more in the future. And it's a great networking tool. So that is at asce.org/membership/student. I won't make any jokes this time about cruising on over during lecture instead of being on Instagram or something and not paying attention. But, it only takes about 5 minutes to sign up, and it's really valuable. Great. So exciting news, guys. ASCE t-shirts. They're here, and we can't give them to you yet. Before I go to the next slide, this is what they look like. Oh, bam. So beautiful design made for us by Ava. I'm trying to get this in shot here without, frustrating myself. It's great. I love this shirt. It fits me really well. They're the same kind of shirts that the CEGE department had that they pass out at their barbecue that they have every semester or every fall semester. So if you got one of those and you really like them, these will fit you the same way that did. So I ordered the same kind of shirts because I liked the extra large CEGE shirt. So I'm wearing an extra large ASCE shirt now. Fits the same, super comfy, nice and soft. It's like a 50-50 blend. And it looks fantastic. So here's some details on how you can get one. Depending on the response that we get from the department, I'm working with them. They may be able to fund shipping to all of our members that, you don't have to be in the Columbus area, I don't believe. But there's like two options that we have to get t-shirts to you guys. One is we'll ship them out to you. That depends on how much interest we have in the order form and where everybody ends up living. If they live, if they live overseas, you might have to come back in the spring and get your t-shirt in person. But if you live locally or, in the contiguous 50 or 48, we will be able to get you a ASCE t-shirt by mail, depending on how the department responds to our proposal. So in order to write that proposal, I need to get interest from you guys. So I've written an order form, and I'm going to walk you through it here in just a second, that I won't be sending out until Monday because I have to hash out a couple more details. But that's going to have a question on it that asks for your shipping address. We may not necessarily end up being able to ship them, but just so we know, please fill that part of it out. And either we will ship them over winter break, or we'll have some sort of pickup option in the spring. We were planning to just do a regular old, have a table, people file through, and you take your shirt and pay us right there. But things got kind of complicated at the end of the semester. COVID cases are going crazy, I guess. And the university is getting really, really nervous about having any sort of in-person stuff. We can't even have gatherings of 10 people like we used to be able to. So that's not going to work for the fall. We can't have an in-person pickup option. So either we will be able to ship them to you, which I would love to be able to do, so you can all have them over Christmas, take your Christmas photos in your ASCE t-shirt, or we'll have them in the spring for you guys. So let me just show you that order form right now. I'll have to switch the screen sharing, but I think this is important. Everybody sees what they're going to be looking at so they get a little bit of an expectation. Okay, does that work? Can everybody see the screen now? Okay, great. So they're going to be $5. You guys know that, and you're ready to pay it. I think that's a bargain, a steal to look like this. I did put a due date on here. This may change. I just said December 4th, which is the last day of class. I need to know who's buying a t-shirt by then, but it may be sooner, could be later. We're literally working this out today. This is very exciting. This is hot stuff. Here's the design made by Ava. In case you hadn't seen this before, you clicked on the order link for some reason. You're going to have a place to pick what kind of shirt you're ordering. Oh, I should do the preview so I can actually play with it a little bit. To pick, so I want one extra small. I would never want an extra small. It would never fit me. It would explode. But maybe I want 4 extra large shirts that, I want to parade around in. And then here is where I would put my address. It already has your name and everything worked in because you have to sign in to be able to upload a file down here. But you'll have your address here, and then we're going to ask you to upload a file, a screenshot of your Venmo payment to us, which we'll verify before we send it out. So this is I just made this. It may change a little bit, but you can see it's going to be a very simple order form. We're only taking payments over Venmo if we're shipping them, because obviously we can't do cash. I don't know how that would work. You mail us cash, we mail it back. It would be silly. So there will be payments through Venmo, which is at OSU ASCE, but you don't need to worry about doing this tonight. I'm going to make sure this is actually the order form we want to present to everybody for real, and we'll get that sent out on Monday. I just need the weekend to really make sure this plan is going to work. I just had a meeting today to get all of this shipping stuff worked out. So they're coming to you guys. We're going to make this happen. That's the point. That's why I'm telling you all this tonight, is because I'm excited that they are here. The shirts just got here, and we're going to get them to you. Okay, let me bring it back to the presentation. So that's all I have about shirts. Okay, are we back? I'm looking for heads nodding. Nice. Okay, great. That's why I love having the face cams on for you guys, because I can see if I'm doing the right thing. Okay, ASCE t-shirts. It's happening. I'm pumped. You can tell. So that's all I have in terms of updates. It's a pretty sparse couple of weeks at the end of the semester, as always. But for our meeting, the main topic we have tonight is the student panel. We've got 2 students here, one who's completed Capstone, one who is nearly done. Derek is the one who's finished. Bradley, you're nearly finished. Is that correct? And
I finished last semester. Actually.
Oh, you just finished too. Okay, great. See, I should be better informed on this. But Derek did the Tanzania project, and Bradley, you were in what kind of? See, this is why we're doing the student panel. You were just in regular Capstone, right? Is that what I would call it?
Yes, I was in a land development project for the new Upper Arlington High School.
Perfect. Okay, so Derek was in Tanzania. Bradley was with the land development project. So there's like the 2 sides of it. I'm sure there's more. I don't know much about Capstone. That's why I'm here.
Dan, I know I'm not on the panel, but I was structural if people have structural questions.
And Nick is our stand-in structural person on the panel too. He can, yeah. If you feel impassioned enough to answer one of these questions I'm asking Bradley and Derek, Nick, please jump in. So I encourage all of you to think of questions during this Q&A session. We have some prepared ones. But if you have any and you think of them, you don't have to wait. You can type them in the chat and I will read them out at the next break, or you can interrupt and shout them out. This is really informal, and I'm sure they wouldn't mind being interrupted if it's relevant to the discussion. So
Dan, speaking of interrupting, can
yes,
I interrupt for a second?
Absolutely.
Can you go back to the ASC Nationals page again?
Yeah, sure thing.
Guys, I have some exciting news. I just got an email from an ASCE Nationals representative. He saw that I'm graduating here, and he'd like to give me, so normally, once you become a working professional and you want to continue with the professional national organization there, you have fees that you have to pay, which sometimes you can, or a lot of time you can get your company to pay for them. But he just emailed me like a couple days ago saying that because I was a student member, they're going to waive my first year of fees. So
that's
if
awesome.
you need more incentive, you know, they say it's usually like a $50 fee for the first year. And he's saying I'm getting it completely free because I was a member as a student, and you'll get 4 years of a discount on that fee. And I'm also getting in a drawing for a $100 Amazon gift card. So, you know,
that's
what
fantastic.
more do you need there?
So yeah, another reason to sign up as a student. Right now it's free and it's going to save you money in the future. Otherwise, you know, no Amazon gift card, no free $50 registration, none of that, no discount. So it's really worth your time, guys. Thanks for that update, Bradley. That's awesome. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. I'm not going to have them up on the screen. They're just going to be read out. If you guys need me to repeat the question, let me know. They're not hard, but we're going to start with what is your definition of Capstone? Just talk us through what you see Capstone as like a whole. You don't have to go into super crazy detail, but just if someone's just walked up to you in the hallway and said, hey, I heard about this thing called Capstone. What is it? What would you say? We can start with, we'll go in alphabetical order, so we can start with Bradley.
Okay. I think this is really great too that we have Derek here, since he had such a different experience doing this service project. But Capstone is a 1 year, 2 semesters, collaborative effort. You're in the same group, and you guys essentially get a project where you can pretend to be an engineer for a couple hours of a day or whatever, or during that semester. And depending on what category you're in, you're going to be doing different things. But very much collaborative, very much get to work with software. If you've never used, you definitely will get exposed to it, and you get to work on real. These are, for the most part, correct me if I'm wrong with anyone else who's been in it, but they're like real life projects going on. Like I said before, we were working on the new Upper Arlington High School that's currently being built right now. But yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Cool, Derek. You can just start. I don't need to intro you guys in every time.
Yeah, sure. So before I give like the Tanzania capstone perspective, Nick, do you want to weigh in to add on to what Bradley said, since you did the regular capstone too?
Yeah, I can do that. So I would say Bradley's pretty right. It's definitely a collaborative effort. It's a senior design level class where you get the opportunity to work with different people within your major and industry professionals to sit here, and they divide the civil engineering into the different categories of structural, land development, bridge design, transportation design, water resource, geotechnical, and then you get a project where you take a full year and you get to work through the design of this with these professional engineers, giving you insight and guidance along the way. And it's a great opportunity to learn the softwares that these people use on a day in, day out basis.
Nice. So yeah, I mean, Bradley and Nick explained that really well. The only thing different for the Tanzania capstone, I guess, since a lot of you guys might not know what it is, I'll go ahead and introduce that. It's pretty much a service learning capstone where we're building a water treatment system to feed water out of the Pangani River to a local community in a rural part of Tanzania. And the community is called Marwa. So they pretty much have about 4 to 5 groups of the same size of the capstone group you would be in, like for Nick or Bradley situation. So you have about 20 to 30 people working on this capstone, but in each group, you again have the engineers organized into like their discipline, like water resources, distribution, structural engineering, surveying, um, environmental. So it's in a few ways it's similar to the regular capstone for civil engineering, but the pacing can be a lot different because you're working on a project that is actually going to be built in a country that's like not the United States. So a lot of the design rules can be different and it presents a lot more challenges. And I guess as the questions come, I'll kind of get more into those.
Perfect, guys. That was a great overview. Here, really quick, I'm going to stop sharing so we can see everybody's face a little bit easier. I think that'll be more conducive to discussion. Okay, perfect. So our next question is, what is the difference between Capstone 1 in the fall and 2 in the spring? This can be a really general overview. Again, it doesn't have to get super into the nitty gritty, but like Capstone 1 and 2 are separate classes and someone wanted to know what's the difference between those.
I'd say that with Capstone 1, you're really just learning expectations in your timeline. You're getting more of just I know for us, like the first assignment is like a poster project, just like talking about who you are in the rest of your group. So it's a great way of just like introducing each other to the rest of the class. Um, Man, it seems so long ago. I'm sure you guys will have a better explanation of it, but it yeah, very much introductory, getting down, like just learning how to kind of interact with the professionals that you're going to have around you. There's like a schedule of, you'll have like a little bio too of the people that will be in there. They're current working professionals in the area that each have like their own specific niche that you might want to go after one more than another, um, fighting for their attention. But just getting used to the project, the class, how it's going to run, uh, getting used to the resources you're going to be using. Like we looked a lot into the Columbus water design manual. I already forgot the name of it, but just learning our way around that and just figuring out just kind of basically at least for us, it was a lot less design. A lot of the design portion came the second Capstone 2. It was a lot of just figuring out, okay, what is the problem or how we're going to approach it, what our options are, going into things like that, coming up with proposals like that, and then essentially Capstone 2 is, okay, of those options that we had that we've been spending all year figuring out or all semester, what are the best ways to construct what we are constructing. Now let's do it. Now let's do the design, the calculations, and the rest of that.
Yeah, so I'll jump in on what Bradley was saying. It's definitely I'd say the first half of the first semester is very much um, in the like consultation phase where you're trying to you put out like a bid for the project and say like this is where it's going to cost us this much money, and this is the team that we're going to be doing it with, and this is the scope that we're designing for and everything like that. And then the second half, if you guys are familiar with the term, like a schematic design is basically what you do in the second half of the semester, where you come through and, like Bradley said, you assess the options that you have for your type of project. Or, if it's a building, are you going to build it out of concrete, steel, wood? The different types of curves that you can do for roads and things of that nature. You start getting into saying, this is these are potential options that we have. And then you do sort of, to use Masari's term, back of the envelope calculations to sit here and say, okay, this is what we think this building would look like out of steel, or this is what we think the profile of the land is going to have to look like potentially. And then you end the semester off with the proposal saying, based off of our calculations, the cost estimates we have, this is what we're going to run with. We're going to do, steel for the building, for example. And then you come back in the second semester and you really start using the softwares to go through and design the different aspects of the building and really go full in depth as far as you can. And then you present on it at the end of the semester.
Yeah, that's I guess to add to that, I'm not sure if you guys brought it up, but during the first semester, you do an extra recitation class for Capstone where Dr. Masari will like kind of walk you through like some really popular lessons learned by like different engineers, like working with architects, or like how to have like good format and reports, stuff like that. So it's a lot of like housekeeping, due diligence type of stuff, not really like technical knowledge, but you do a lot of like just like how to be a good professional engineer kind of thing. And then that recitation goes away in the second semester. You don't do that. And I think your lab time for the technical part gets longer. Am I right, guys? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you are.
Okay. So yeah, and being part of the Tanzania Capstone, we still did that Monday recitation for the first semester with them. Anthony, are you guys doing that for this year?
No, our lab time and recitation time is totally separate. It's all through Patrick and H.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So the thing about the Tanzania project is it really changes each year. So it's been worked on, the project was kind of born back in like 2015 when Patrick and Dr. H went to Tanzania after getting reached out to by the nonprofit that we're partnering with. And ever since 2015, it's kind of been building and building each year off of the previous year's work. So my first semester probably looks a lot different than Anthony's first semester, who's in it right now. So right off the bat, we didn't really focus as much on some of the stuff that Nick said about like submitting proposals and a little bit of the earlier on due diligence of a project. We didn't focus on that so much. We kind of hit the ground running with analyzing the progress done by the previous teams and coming up with alternatives and using our own judgment to see if, asking ourselves, were they on the right track? Is this a line of work that we can continue, or do we need to like change the design? So I would say that things are going to be a little bit more design heavy if you do the Tanzania Capstone in the first semester.
There we go. That's great. Those were some great answers, guys. It's first semester is getting ready for the design once you're in Tanzania, and then second semester is like acting upon your preparation. I think I feel a little more comfortable with knowing the difference now. So Derek mentioned that you get put into groups. This sort of goes along with this question. How do you choose your projects that you're planning for and then acting on in the second semester? And do you have a lot of freedom? Are there projects to pick from? Do you get placed into a group that's working on a specific project? How does the whole project selection process work? Let's go through that.
I'm really curious to hear Derek's side of this. But for us, and Nick, please correct me if I'm wrong here or get the details muddled, but essentially you sign up for the class. So first of all, pay attention to your emails, because I kind of would just skim over whenever I'd get a department email, be like, whatever. And one day I happened to read one all the way through, and they kind of like snuck in there, hey, if you're planning on graduating this semester, blah, 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 autumn of 2020, you need to be signed up for Capstone like now. So look out for that, because I believe they only do Capstone 1 in autumn, Capstone 2 in spring. So you need to make sure that you know when you're going to be graduating or when you plan on it, so that you are signed up in time, because I don't even want to know what kind of problems you'll have if you don't. But so I signed up for Capstone and went to class, and the first day, Masari handed out just a packet of all the projects available. Um, Man, I wish I kept it around. I got rid of a lot of my stuff here, but I don't know. There must have been like 25 different projects on there or something. And essentially he just says like, list your top four, and the projects, and it's pretty well set up. It tells you, you know, what the project is, what the specific field of engineering it's more um, leaning towards, you know, like what Nick was talking about, if it's structural, geotechnical, land development, water resources, bridge, whatever, it'll tell you, you know, which one it is in. So me not having a not really leaning one way or another with civil, I kind of just went with land development. I thought it sounded easier, really. So I I was looking at those, but so yeah, so you have a packet that gives you a description of all the different projects, which niche they're more oriented towards, and and they're like labeled like A, B, C, D, whatever through there, and he just said put your top four, put those down, and then like next week or whatever, he went through and he tried to give everyone their, you're in a group of four, um, some might have five, and he tried to give everyone their top pick, but if not, the second one or whatever, and that's how it essentially is divvied out.
Yeah, Bradley hits it pretty well. I'm definitely going to reiterate the first point that he had. I initially thought I was going to graduate in this spring 2020, and then at the start of autumn semester in 2019, changed my mind. So I missed the first day of Capstone. So I had to do all that work that Bradley did, that Bradley's talking about at midnight that night, or the following night or something like that, while on the phone with Masari to talk through like the different projects. So make sure you know when you're going to graduate ahead of time, so you don't have to catch up on the whole first day at 11 p.m. with Dr. Masari or Dr. Her, whoever teaches Capstone. But yeah, basically, like Bradley said, there's a packet, and there's at least 25, it might be 30 to 35 different projects in there, and you rank them out based off of what is the most interesting to you. I did structural because I'm more interested in construction and had experience in that field, so I felt that the structure was more up my alley. And they put me in a group with a bunch of people who were in structural, who had an interest in structures, and they tried to match it up as best they can with preference to preference. And then you stick with that group for the remainder of the semester and the second semester in Capstone too. So definitely, if you have a good group, that's awesome and that's great. And if you have a member or two who needs a little motivation, sometimes just know that you're going to have to stick with them the rest of the way, and try and give them friendly reminders to help keep deadlines, because the deadlines come up very quickly in Capstone.
Yeah, so I had to go through like the same process that they did. I think the first like week we didn't really like meet as for the Tanzania group, we didn't really meet as a group. But ahead of time, like before the first week of school, I think there were several emails that were sent out like to everyone in the department who was going to do Capstone saying, hey, if you like, here's a brief intro of the Tanzania project. If this is something interesting for your capstone, then fill out the survey. So you fill out the survey, and then like you fill out an application with a couple questions, and then Dr. H and Patrick will kind of review it, and they'll do their best to get them in. I think Patrick said they had like 50 people who applied this year, and he was able to fit in 34. So yeah, it can be a little competitive, but yeah, he tries to get in as many people as possible. I think there were like 25 during my year, so he's already like beefing it up. Anthony, does that kind of sound like what you had to go through?
To get into the capstone, yeah. I do remember doing the application. I think it was due the spring semester though. I don't remember doing it over the summer. But I can't remember that well either, unfortunately.
Read your emails.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Derek. Okay, this next one should be pretty quick. I expect all of you will have the same answer. Is the workload for Capstone, does it correspond to the credit hours you get at all?
No.
That was the question we had.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
not.
what is it, like a credit or
Good
two?
question. How many credit
Credits?
hours is it to begin with? Because I don't even know that.
It's
Isn't it
two.
like 2
Two.
credits?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, really, it comes down to how much work you want to put into it. And so when Nick was talking about the guys in the group that need extra motivation, that was definitely me. So for me, I probably only put about 2 credit hours worth in. But easily, I would say like a 5 credit hour class if you want to make it. So like I just have heard like here Nick's here on my screen. I don't know about you guys, but he had a very impressive group, and I'm sure that they might have put even 6 credit hours worth in. But no, yeah, it does not translate. I would not say at all. It is much more than 2, but it's not. Don't let that scare you. I don't know. It's especially if you have a good group. It's not nearly as bad. I feel bad about COVID, really. Like that, this definitely was a weird one, a class to transition online to if you were already lacking motivation. Um, but it also wasn't terrible with having the virtual machines, being able to log into the school computers and, just getting used to Zoom at the time, which I think we're all pretty accustomed to at this point. But it was like new then. But yeah, I'd say more than 2.
Okay, it depends on which end of the spectrum you're on. The Bradley end or the Nick end. By Bradley's definition, of course. No shade. Any other thoughts on that? I know I kind of cut it off.
I will say the way they do it is, at least when we went through, you get out of Capstone what you put into Capstone. So you can be fine if you put 2 to 3 to 4 hours a week as a collective group, if you're each doing that, and you'll do fine. Bradley, like you said, I had a really good group. We got behind the 8 ball at a point in time, and we were putting in closer to 8 to 10 hours a week into Capstone. And then we got ahead of the curve, and it really benefited our project, and we learned a lot from it. So it just kind of depends on the kind of group you get and the workload that everybody's able to and wants to take on.
Just to throw that in there too, like Nick said perfectly. It's going to be whatever you put into it, you're going to get out. And I put the least amount I could, and I think I probably had the lowest grade in all the Capstone, and that was like a B-. So you're going to be fine. They're not out to wreck your life, but yeah, it's really down to you wanting to put that time in. Sorry, I was just reading a comment there.
Yeah, I'll hit that in a second.
Awesome. Yeah, I digress. I'll get back to some other stuff later.
Great. Okay. There's a couple questions in the chat here. I'll jump over here for a second. Mike asks, are you guys taking classes while you're doing the Capstone project? So that's a good question because it factors into the workload.
Yeah, it's just like any other class. It's just going to be another class in the semester there, if I'm understanding the question right. But yeah, you will just be working it in like anything else. I will say, having, now I'm graduating in December here. Like, I think it's awesome because I don't have Capstone my last semester. So ideally, you have it your last 2 there. But it's been, if you're on that route of graduating in the autumn there, I would say that that's a perk right there. You don't have to worry about capstone when senioritis is hitting you extra hard.
Okay. Finn asked a great question, and this was actually our next question anyway. So, Finn, you're ahead of the curve there. How does grading work? Assignments and peer reviewing. They mentioned there's a peer review component to it. Just how is something so at times qualitative graded? How does that work?
So most of your grades are, it's going to all be laid out in front of you. You're going to have, your uh, syllabus there. You're going to know when all the deadlines are. Like Nick said, they can't sneak up on you. So it almost, I would say at the beginning of Capstone, I was like kind of sleeping on the class. It was like, oh, this is, it didn't seem too daunting, which changed really quickly. But just keep up with it. It's 2 credit hours, but think of it as like I would log it in as like a minimum 4 credit hour kind of class for your expectations. um, but yeah, it's a lot of just what you get graded on really, is like the papers that you do. um, and it's not tough. Like I said, they're not out trying to wreck your life with it, but you do need to hit the points, that are given, whatever is being asked for in your proposals, and they're just going to look at, uh, more so later on, your schematics. But before that, really just that you have options for the different issues you're facing, and that you have a good explanation of how you came up with these ideas or with these options and how you made that decision. So they just want to see that you didn't just throw a dart at the board and say, we're going with that one. That you have some sort of, like, you tried, you gave it some engineering thought about the constructability of the cost of, also just what's going to work with the situation you're given. But yeah, just mostly it's just papers, uh, done as a group. They're not that bad, and a lot of it is just kind of building off of the previous paper that you did. So it's not completely horrible, but yeah, they're not going to kill you with the grades there as long as you're just doing what you're asked.
Yeah, I think this kind of goes the same for, I assume maybe it's the same for Derek and Tanzania. But to start, there's a lot. The big thing I know when we took it last year was attendance. You had to be present for like every session, and that they would have like progress reports that you'd have to turn in, or meeting minutes, or like you'd have to turn in something almost every week, and those would be worth a few points each time. And then the bulk comes at the end of the semester, when in your group of 4, group of 5, depending on how many were in your group, um, you would write your technical report, where you came through and you said, this is the options that we have, and this is the option we've chose. Or if it's in Capstone 2, talking about your design and the processes, and why your design is the way that it is. And then in both semesters, you have a presentation you give at the end, where you, again, in Capstone 1, it's talking about what options you had, and what you're choosing. And then in Capstone 2, it's working them through the design, and showing them the drawings, and why you have shear walls in these locations, or what have you. Um, and they are they're very lenient with the grading of it. And like, as long as like what Bradley said, if what you did makes engineering sense, they're not going to penalize you for it, but they'll point out flaws in your design and say, well, maybe you should do this, or this is what would probably be done in the real world.
Just real quick, jumping in what Nick said about those meeting minutes. So those actually weren't due weekly. That probably would have been better. It was like due, like, you'd see ahead of time, okay, we have our first paper due in like 4 weeks, and part of that is the meeting minutes. And so just start them from the beginning, and just do them every time you meet, because what ended up happening is it's 3 days before the paper, and we're making up meeting minutes from a month ago of like, okay, what did we do this day? What did we talk about? What did we come up with at the end? And, you know, they give you a format and all that. You just really talk about, you know, what your objectives that day, what got done, who's responsible for it getting done, and what are the goals for the next time you meet. Start that just ASAP. You know, it's just going to be easier. It's really the easiest thing, but if you keep it to like the day before the before the paper, it definitely is a little daunting. So that was something like just keep up with. And it's just good housekeeping. Just, you know, what did we talk about and what is our plan, you know, for the next time we meet. It'll only serve you well starting that from the very beginning.
Let's hear it. Derek, is anything different in the Tanzania project in terms of grading?
I think Anthony would be better to answer that because he's in it right now.
Yeah, so far, the only things we've really had graded are work breakdown structure, and that's sort of just like our plan for what we're gonna do and what's been done already since it's an ongoing project. And I think the only other thing we've really had graded is like a draft of a report, since I'm not even done with the semester yet. But we have a report due at this semester of stuff that we've done and stuff that was done last year. So I'm not even done with that yet.
Okay, awesome. So we've got one question, a quick one from Finn. I think we said maybe 4 or 5, but he said how many members are in a group?
Yeah, I believe they're shooting for 4. And that just can change. Sometimes you got a group that has 5. Derek will have to come in on their project. I'm not sure how they split that up, but yeah, it's typically going to be around 4 people. And like for us, we had a guy that mysteriously, he was one of our like lead dudes in our group, and in like the last month of class, he just disappeared. He was gone. We couldn't contact him. I was, to be honest, I was looking through obituaries. I knew his hometown. I was worried about the dude. We couldn't get a hold of him. And Masari would then give us some very cryptic messages of like, oh, we have talked. We understand what you're going through. And that's about it. So he was extra lenient with us because we lost a guy like last month. I think it was like after spring break. He didn't come back. Yeah, I don't. He had some personal things going on, but so we were down to 3. But with me, it was basically 2. Uh, but yeah, so that's the long-winded answer for 4 people.
Okay, Finn asks, he's got some great questions. For the Tanzania project, so this is for Derek, you said there's a bunch of people who sign up. Do they all get split into small groups and complete identical projects? Oh, Finn, don't apologize. These are great. So sorry, last question. You're doing fantastic.
Yeah, so what'll happen is like a bunch of people will apply, and then like depending on how Patrick and Dr. H feel about the project that year, they might choose between like 20 to 30 people to join that capstone. And then you'll be, at least for my year and I think Anthony's year, the groups were about a size of 6. Is that right, Anthony? Yeah, okay. So yeah, a little bit bigger. I think Patrick mentioned to me he might consider making that 4 people, but as far as you don't work on identical projects, so you each work on like a different discipline of the overall project. So like I was on the structural engineering group, so I designed like reinforced concrete components for like the pump house, the channel, the wastewater treatment plant. So all of like the building structures for that. And if we want to focus on like the hydraulics of the system, the water hydraulics team was in charge of like making sure that all the water ran through the system well and stuff like that. And then there's like a piping team, there's an environmental team. So overall, like you're all under the same umbrella project, but you're working on like different parts of the project. based on like your different disciplines.
Great answer, Derek. Brian asks, what software do you guys use for the projects? There might be a lot of different software, but that's what kind of software was in either form of Capstone.
We used a lot of just CAD, just Civil 3D, AutoCAD. That's about all we were using.
Is that the same for you too?
No, we use Bluebeam for the drawings to see the drawings. Then you would use eTabs, RAM, and we used RAM a lot. I would say RAM does a lot of the gravity stuff for you, and it was able to do our foundations and then and our connections. And then we used eTabs for the lateral.
So for the Tanzania project, you don't use as much software as you would for the regular civil engineering capstone. And I think it's because the nature of the project, it's not like in the normal capstone, Dr. Masari could probably has like an idea in his head of like how each project is supposed to like be mapped out and completed. Whereas the Tanzania one, that doesn't, there's no really existing game plan for all of that yet. So like Dr. H and Patrick kind of encourage all of us to do things by like, I don't know if by hand is the best way to say it, but like do it like organically, not through like a software. Especially because like it's a very odd project with a lot of like weird inputs that like don't really fit most of the software programs that like we use in America. Like we're using like 2000 PSI concrete, which kind of like throws a wrench into like some of your software programs, or like we have really like irregular shaped buildings and stuff like that. So it's just, we just really didn't get as much opportunity working with software. But I mean, you do work, I still feel like I learned just as much, you know, if I was not as so much for software, but like overall, I feel like I learned just as much about civil engineering if I would have been in like the normal capstone too.
So speaking of learning while you're in Capstone, Danny asks, do you use a lot of the skills and the topics that you cover in the prereq classes? Or is it more of a learn as you go type thing while you're working with these professional people that come in and help?
I definitely felt it was very much learn as you go. I don't know. I have a very pessimistic view on Capstone, but that was mostly my own doing. I felt like it was very much catered towards students who had decent internship experience, who had kind of any kind of grasp on constructing something. Just a couple guys in my group were just throwing out, or just on a regular basis, were throwing around just basic vocab that I had no idea what they were talking about, and they were AutoCAD wizards, and I'd never used it other than like the one class I had. So I felt very, let's just say, I think the only project I really did was the poster project at the beginning, and I killed that poster. And I said, all right, guys, that's how I contribute. But uh, but what Nick said earlier about you'll get out what you put in, like that's the best way I would say to summarize the whole class. Don't be afraid to go after Masari or your professor, who's ever teaching it, or the getting the attention of the professionals that are around. Like, those are assets. Those are people, and they're giving their time, and it's incredible that they're doing that. And use them. I saw a lot of people standing there, and more so at the beginning, but they were just waiting for someone, itching for one of us to ask them something. And I should have been. I needed one of those guys at my hip, really, just assigned to me. If I could have, I would have loved that, because I just was so out of the loop and behind. So I felt like I was kind of steamrolled past in this class, but I definitely also wasn't putting myself out there because I was like, okay, I've got other classes to worry about. So these guys in the group seem to have it. So I really regret that, but I didn't get as much out because I didn't put a lot in. So um I already lost track of the question. I think I was just letting it out there for a minute.
So I would say it's kind of a blend. I would agree with Bradley. If you have internship experience, that is crucial. Or not, it's not crucial. It can be very beneficial. I have internship experience. I had internship experience, and that was very helpful to me and my group because I had an understanding of how this was going to get put together and things to look for and resources that I could go to for assistance. But it's not necessary. They do a good job of helping you if you go out and seek the help of it. Um, so I would say it's a blend of the skills because you have to have the knowledge to design steel or design concrete or design foundations or water systems like that. That's all important. But um, most of what we do is typically solving a problem that's catered. And here you're trying to solve a problem with a blank canvas where you can kind of make it what you want to based off of engineering judgment. And there are certain parameters you have to follow for code or whatever. Um, and I think it's a good chance to learn skills and learn topics because I think employers will really they'll be really interested in your capstone experience if you want to highlight it in an interview, and it's a good chance to go out and say I am now a whiz at CAD or another software, or I developed my leadership skills in this group because it's a team based thing and you have to have a leader in some capacity. So if that's what excites you, you can definitely get a lot out of it.
Yeah, I think they both said that really well.
Okay, we're nearly finished here. We are past our time, but I thought as long as people are asking questions, we're going to keep going with this because this has been great. So one more prepared question. This is the last one I've got, and then we'll have a closing question. Tips for interacting with those professional resources. I know we spoke very briefly about the fact that there are industry professionals walking around the room there to help. But for someone who may not have interacted with anybody in the professional world before, how do you go about talking to them and working with them? That's the question we had.
I'd say just don't be intimidated. They're people, they went through the same kind of stuff you just went through. A lot, like, we had a spectrum. We had people that just graduated like a couple years ago, and we had a guy that looked like he could have founded this school. But it's like they understand what you're going through, and just I wish I, make a, make it. Oh, that's the other thing too. On top of the packet of all the descriptions for all the projects, they give you a packet of all the brief description on all the people that are going to be there and like what days they'll be there. Some show up on Tuesdays, some show up on Thursdays, but so you will get a little background. You'll have their names there if you ever need it. If you forget, need a reference, and a little bit about where they went to school, where they're working now, what fields they're um, specifically experts in, and I don't know, it's just approach them like the people that they are, and don't be afraid to, you know, don't feel like you need to impress, like something, like they know you don't, or they're there volunteering their time just to help you guys out. So use them how you can. That's something that I should have jumped on earlier, because then by the time you get to Capstone 2, you're going to have groups that kind of already headhunted a couple dudes, and they're going to probably be around them more because they've been, constantly talking with them throughout the semester, and they've already gotten that relationship. And it's just going to might be a little harder to get their attention, but they're going to try to, get around everyone that they can, but it'll get to a point where you're kind of competing for them. So, just start out early, introduce yourself. and just be frank with them about how, I really don't know what I'm doing, and I would love to hear, how, or come up with some stuff, make it look like you tried, you know, this is what I'm thinking, this is what we're thinking, the direction we're going, but we really don't know, where to go from here. Like, well, what are your thoughts? How would you do this? And they're more than happy to help. So that's what I would say. Definitely use them.
I'm gonna mostly echo what Bradley said. The one thing that I think that we did that helped us is, like you said, you get in with them early, but especially if you don't know what you need to do, it's very helpful to go to, say, a Dr. Masari and say, "Hey, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing here. What do I need?" He'll give you some question. He'll give you some answers, and then you can go to a different engineer and say, "Okay, so we're thinking maybe about this. Do you have any recommendations?" And kind of play them back on each other. That way, you can get that relationship and um, start to gain an understanding of what you're going to do.
Yeah, I think I almost have like nothing to add. Maybe that I do know second semester it was a little harder. I think Tanzania we kind of like split off into our own rooms, so it might have been harder to network with some of the industry professionals. And I mean, now that we're on Zoom, like it's even harder. I'm actually not even sure if the current Tanzania group does allow with industry professionals. Do you, Anthony? No.
Oh, we have Randall, and that's it.
Yeah. So I mean, for the Tanzania project, Dr. H, if you're doing anything structures related, Dr. H is a really, really smart, well practiced guy in structures. And then you have Randall, who really stays involved in the project. He graduated like 5 years ago, but he worked on like the first group of the Tanzania project, and he is really good for like water resources and everything that way. And then Patrick knows a little bit about environmental. So there's a little bit of help you can get within like the Tanzania group, but like you're gonna have to try a little bit extra hard to get help outside of that.
Great. And I know if any of you were here for our Burgess and Nyepel presentation, we had Danny Soroka here, and he was a Capstone advisor. So he might be one of the people that's walking around helping you guys out. Okay. Really briefly, as a wrap-up question, let's just get, 10-second final thoughts. Danny asks, did you guys enjoy your Capstone experience? I know someone's answered to this already. And do you think it was worthwhile? Did you learn a lot? Just real quick, just wrap us up here.
I wasn't a big fan, but I would just keep echoing what Nick said. You'll get out what you put in. Don't be afraid to talk to those guys. You're gonna feel like don't know what you're doing and you're behind first capstone, but you're probably doing better than you think. But there's no harm in getting ahead. But use your resources and yeah, I would say that.
I found it to be the best class I've taken at OSU. It gives a great background, great opportunity to meet new people, and really expand your knowledge and it's something to put on your resume and talk about when you go to a job interview. Uh, I loved it, even though I had late nights. I had the 2, 3, 4, 5 a.m. nights doing reports and drawings and whatnot, but I loved it. I would do it again right now.
Yeah, during the capstone, while you're taking capstone, it won't feel like you're enjoying it. It's almost like if you were like sinking and then someone hands you an anchor. Uh, but then like I guess like so if you do it like fall to spring of your senior year, and then like right after you graduate, looking back, you'll have the perspective that Nick had. Like, yeah, that's during when you're taking it, it won't feel like the best class, but like after you're done with it, you'll be like, I learned a lot, and like you're gonna grow the most through capstone. So yes, it's so satisfying. And I guess you really don't have a choice if you don't like it or not. You got to do it. So you got to find some way to enjoy it. And being the Tanzania project, the context of that was like really, really, really cool because you get to learn a lot about like working with nonprofits and like working on project overseas. Like there's so much, it's really cool context. So that's what kind of kept me going. Like, even though there are a lot of things frustrating about the Tanzania project, the context of it was like what really kept everyone in my year motivated. And hopefully, we weren't able, usually if you do the capstone, you have the opportunity to travel there to the project site in Tanzania. And of course, because COVID, we didn't. And I don't think it's going to happen this coming year for Anthony's year. So hopefully when you guys do it, you guys have that opportunity. Because that like, Patrick and H said that the trip usually cures all of the sores that developed over the year of capstone. So yeah.
I did forget to mention Derek's 100% right. While you're in it, you're gonna hate it. But one of my best friends that I made during capstone, so definitely worth it.
Okay, fantastic. I'm gonna pull this right back up. This was really good. We have no questions left in the chat. We got through in pretty good time. So I've been adding to this slide as we've been talking. So thank you to Derek, Bradley, and Nick, and Anthony for their thoughts on Capstone. This was really great. I'm glad the student panel turned out as well as I was hoping. So claps in the chat for all 4 of them. This was fantastic. And I know we went a little bit later than we normally would. So I'm just going to end it right here in terms of stuff that I have for you guys. This is great. Let's have officers stick around for like 5 more minutes. But besides that, thanks everyone and have a good night. I think we're good.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. That was fun.
Good luck.
Okay.